Yo, what's going on everyone? Freakadude99 here, and today I got a banger of a Solar Warlock build that I've been using against endgame content like Grandmaster Nightfalls. With the nerf of Starfire Protocol, there came the time for other exotics to rise, and at the top of the heap has got to be Sunbracers. Pair this with POLARIS Lance and you'll have such an easy time grinding out Legend, Master, and Grandmaster content, it's not even funny. So without further ado, let's just jump into the build. Starting off with the subclass, we have our Super Well of Radiance for the constant healing and 25% increased damage for 30 seconds while inside the 6.5 meter radius. This also makes the caster's weapons deal super ability damage for things like orb generation, and deals damage and applies 40 Scorch, 60 with Ashes on activation. It's an amazing super for locking down an area or getting some clutch saves, so it's always good to have in your back pocket. For our class ability, we're using Phoenix Dive for the quick hitbox displacement and ×2 cure we apply to us and our teammates within 9 meters when we land. Cure is an instant heal to ourselves. Also, when our aspect Heat Rises is active, it will apply restoration ×2 for 3 seconds to ourselves and cause damage and apply 40 Scorch, 60 with Ashes to enemies within 5 meters. It's also on almost a 30-second lower cooldown compared to the Healing Rift and Empowering Rift, so we can use it a lot more. For our melee ability, we have Incinerator Snap, which fires 5 sparks that explodes and apply 20 Scorch each, 30 with Ashes, so with all hitting you can cause an ignition. This also comes with a lower base cooldown for more uptime and just deals a lot more damage at the cost of range. You have to get somewhat close for this melee to actually hit, but when it does, it pops. And because of our Sunbracers, our Incinerator Snap Final Blows grant insane grenade regeneration, causing us to spam out our grenades. And for our grenade ability, we have of course the poorly named Solar Grenade, which applies 11 Scorch on impact, 21 with Ashes, and then 9 Scorch every second to enemies inside, 14 with Ashes. This usually lasts for 4 seconds, but Sunbracers doubles the duration to 8 seconds. It works amazingly at melting through anything in front of you, including champions and bosses, and once you proc Sunbracers, you can just spam these out and nuke everything across the battlefield. Not to mention, our first aspect Touch of Flame enhances our Solar Grenade by making it linger 2 seconds longer and split out magma orbs that also deal damage. And then our second aspect, Heat Rises, passively grants plus 20 airborne effectiveness, allows weapon and ability usage while gliding, and makes Final Blows while airborne grant melee energy depending on enemy tier, with Rank and File giving 20% and Yellow Bar giving 50% melee energy. We also gain the ability to consume our grenade to activate Heat Rises for 15 seconds and release a burst of Cure ×2 in a 9 meter radius that heals us and our teammates. While Heat Rises is active, we get plus 50 airborne effectiveness, and our glide just lasts forever. Final Blows with Heat Rises increases its duration based on enemy tier, and it maxes out at 30 seconds. Moving down to the fragments, we have Ember of Ashes, which makes almost all Scorch stacks applied increased by 50% and then rounded up. Second, we have Ember of Tempering, which makes Solar Weapon Final Blows grant us and allies within 12.5 meters, plus 10 recovery for 8 seconds, and then stacks up to 3 times, maxing out at 30 recovery. While Tempering is active, we also get plus 20 airborne effectiveness, and Solar Weapon takedowns spawn a Fire Sprite. Fire Sprites of course grant 12.5% grenade energy on pickup, and has a 5-second cooldown between spawns. Third, we have Ember of Singeing, which gives 300% additional base class ability regen for 3 seconds after applying Scorch to enemies. And finally, Ember of Searing. Final Blows on Scorched enemies grant melee ability energy based on enemy rank and spawns a Fire Sprite. Energy given can be from 8% up to 25% depending on the enemy rank. And that does it for the subclass, and moving on to the weapons. Starting off with our main weapon of choice, we have the beautiful and underappreciated Polaris Lance for the ability to get consistent safe damage off and scorch off, and for the ability to stun overload champions and unstoppable champions if you get the ignition off. This high impact scout rifle refills 1 ammo on precision hits, and scoring 4 precision hits readies an explosive solar round that deals damage and applies 40 scorch, 60 with ashes, to enemies within 2 meters, and then the catalyst adds Dragonfly for even more solar damage. Perfect Fifth allows us to safely snipe targets and conserve ammo for when we really need it, and with Overload Scout Rifles this season, we also get the 25% damage buff and overcharge activity, which includes Grandmaster Nightfalls, so it puts in more work than usual. The Solar Weapon Final Blows and Scorch Applying also procs our Fragments Ember of Searing, Tempering, and Singeing, so the synergy with this build is immaculate. For our kinetic slot, I put on Austringer for the security and stunning unstoppables, as getting the Ignition proc isn't always a guarantee with Polaris Lance. There are other hand cannons to use, it just depends on what you personally favor and have. And then for the heavy slot, I've been using fixed odds for the machine gun that's solar and that rolls with incandescent, as it can help clear out enemies that are too close for Polaris Lance to handle. Every once in a while an enemy will get close, and switching to a machine gun like this will save you from a reset. It has good range and is good for taking down champions and whittling down boss bars. Plus, it's craftable and available from the Duality Dungeon right now. Of course, if you have barrier and overload champions, then switch to hand cannon to an auto rifle, and then if you come upon something that's barrier and unstoppable, you can instead switch to something like Wish Ender and Judgment of Kelgrath, and that will get you through pretty easily. With weapons out of the way, we move on to artifact perks, and since it isn't a solar season, we don't have much to grab, so we can pick up all the champion mods here. These mods overcharge the weapon types, so they get a 25% damage buff and overcharge activities. We can also grab the authorized mods Arc, Void, Strand, and Melee, but we only really need the Melee, and then we can grab Deeper Origin, so the origin traits from Season of the Deep and Defiance, Neomuna, and Root of Nightmares weapons get enhanced effectiveness. We also grab Overcharged Armory, so those same weapons get the overcharged buff, which is that 25% damage increase. And then finally, Countercharge, so whenever we stun a champion, we get an armor charge for ourselves. And that does it for the artifact perks, and moving on to the armor mods. Starting off with the helmet, we have Harmonic Siphon, so Polaris Lance and Fixed Odds generate Orbs of Power every 2 kills, and then we have 2 Font of Wisdoms for a plus 50 in Intellect, so we can get our Well of Radiance back faster, since that stat isn't a focus. And then for stat focusing, we want to focus Resilience for the plus 30% damage resistance at tier 10. Second, we want to focus Discipline so we can throw more grenades as much as possible, as it feeds into our other abilities. And then third, we want Recovery, but only up to a max of 7, as Ember of Tempering gives us a plus 30 in Recovery when at max stacks. Anything else then can be further put into Strength to balance it out. Onto the gauntlets, we have our exotic Sunbracers, which comes with the exotic perk Helium Spirals. The poorly named Solar Grenades gets Fastball intrinsically and lasts twice as long, from 4 seconds to 8 seconds. Powered melee kills grant Sunbracers ready for 5 seconds, and if a grenade is used during that time, you get the Sunbracer buff, which grants 20,000% additional base grenade regen for 5 seconds, allowing you to throw out as many grenades as you possibly can spam. For our mods, we have Bolstering Detonation and Momentum Transfer, so on grenade damage grant 20% melee and class ability energy. This has a 7-second cooldown, but solar grenades can hit at the initial explosion and final tick of damage to proc it twice as it's last long enough. We also have Firepower, so all our grenade kills generate Orbs of Power. Moving to the chest piece, we of course run 2 resist mods for the activity's threat modifier. If it's arc threat, then we use double arc resist, and then we grab a third different mod for whatever else damage is being dealt the most in that activity. If there's lots of Shriekers and Ogres, then grab a Void Resist. The 2 Elemental Resist grant 25% damage resistance, and then the single one grants a 15% damage resistance. Down to the legs we're rocking stacks on stacks, so every orb of power we pick up gives us 2 armor charges, so Font of Wisdom can last as long as possible. And then we have recuperation for health on orb pickup, and also invigoration for 10% melee energy on orb pickup. And finally for our bond, we have time dilation increasing our armor charge decay to 15 seconds from 10. We also have outreach granting us 20% melee energy on Phoenix Dive use, as well as powerful attraction collecting all nearby orbs of power on class ability use. And that does it for the Solar Warlock build. For our ability cycle, we want to first consume our grenade to proc heat rises, and then use an incinerator snap to try and proc Sunbracers. We can then use a Phoenix Dive to recover some melee energy and then start spamming grenades. Our solar grenades will be giving 20% ability energy to our snap and dive, so make sure to stay in a loop of incinerator snap, then Phoenix Dive, then grenade to ensure our abilities are refreshing on time. With incinerator snap being a short range melee, it means sometimes you have to get a bit close, but in most cases don't try and push and just play it safe. In most activities, there's always enemies that will end up pushing up to you, and you can snap them, get the kill off, and get your solar grenades and spam them out from a distance. Polaris Lance is definitely your king here, as the ranged power it gives us makes any encounter with even just a little bit of range trivial, as you can sit back and snipe and explode everything. If anything tries to get close to you, just snap them or use fixed odds to quickly clean them up before going back to firing away. This has been a really fun build to put together, and I'm glad that despite being in endgame content, we can still have fun builds like this that work really well. If you need, there's a picture of the build on screen and a dim link in the description, and if you enjoyed the build, make sure to give this video a like and leave a comment. And if you haven't already, maybe subscribe for all your Destiny content needs, as I'm here delivering it all. I have been FreakyDude99, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace out, everyone.